Varys is a very mysterious character in A Song of Ice and Fire. That's kind of his job, being the master of whisperers, but we really don't know a ton about his past, where he comes from, and most importantly, what motivates him. After him serving in this role in the Small Council for the first three books, he vanishes for A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, only popping up in the latter's epilogue chapter to declare himself a loyalist to the boy masquerading as Aegon the Sixth Targaryen. This raises a lot of questions about Varys' motivations and ties to the Targaryen dynasty, and it has led to a lot of speculation as to the ways in which he might be connected to the past of this regime. So today I'd like to take a look at those potential connections and go over why people may think Varys might be a Targaryen, a Blackfyre, or something else entirely, as I tend to fall into the last camp, as there's another path that has Varys having Targaryen blood that could be more interesting than either. The most interesting part of Varys' reveal as an Aegon supporter is the dissonance it creates with his recent past in the series, and even distant past in the series. If we look back at him coming to Westeros, he was sent for by King Aerys II Targaryen after making a name for himself in the Free Cities as a gatherer of information and secrets. He served Aerys II Targaryen, and he brought him many secrets, but those secrets made him paranoid and even more mad. Varys is one of the main individuals I credit with increasing Aerys II's madness. There obviously was some level of mental unwell there initially, but it definitely gets worse and worse and worse as time goes on. My initial thought when I first read the series was, oh, maybe he just supported Rhaegar, so now he's supporting Rhaegar's son. But no, we hear that Varys was one of the people who was urging Aerys against Rhaegar, specifically saying that Rhaegar was trying to usurp his throne, which maybe he was, but regardless, it seems as though Varys was not on the side of Aerys or Rhaegar, which is quite interesting considering his present support for Aegon. All of this ties into the idea that Aegon the Sixth Targaryen is in fact not a Targaryen. There's an excellent Alt-Shift-X video that I am sure you've seen that goes in depth on Varys and Illyrio's schemes and the ways in which Aegon really doesn't seem to be who he claims to be. Whether or not he knows that is also up for debate. But part of this larger image is figuring out what Varys' core motivation is, and from that point, people begin to notice elements of this character that don't seem to make sense or seem to indicate some secret that Varys is hiding that we, the readers, have not yet discovered. Going through a few things that are quite mysterious generally. We know that Varys is from Lys. He grew up there, and when he was young, his private parts were sacrificed in this ritual. They were burned, and this voice spoke to him, and the flames turned blue. It's very mysterious. This obviously brings to mind some of Melisandre's sacrifices, and the Lord of Light specifically, and we know that Melisandre often requests king's blood for those sacrifices and experiments. So that ties to Varys into this idea that, oh, maybe his blood was king's blood, and that is why his sacrifice yielded these strange results. Additionally, Varys is bald. I know that's very big news to all of you, but some people think that Varys is shaving his head to hide Valyrian hair. This is done by characters in the series past, most notably, spoilers for Duncan Egg for the next 5 seconds, Aegon Targaryen, also called Egg. He's described as an egg, and our first description of Varys in the books also has him being described as an egg. Additionally, we hear that only a Targaryen will learn the secrets of the passages within the Red Keep, and we know that Varys knows these passages very well, as they allow him to hide out within the walls of the Red Keep for 2 entire books where he is not discovered by anyone there. As mentioned, Varys' questionable loyalty to the main branch of House Targaryen makes me doubt that he is a true-born, fully in-the-line Targaryen, and additionally, there really isn't a way he would fit into the established family tree of House Targaryen, unless he is from a branch, which we will get into in a second here, as he is old enough to take a position at Aerys' court, and Aerys was only like 39 when he died, and at that point, there really wasn't anybody else who could have been producing someone like Varys. Aerys did not have any cousins that survived to that point, so to speak. And additionally, the thought seems to be that Varys could stem from a branch of House Blackfyre, as that seems to be where Aegon is from. We hear that there are some debts writ in blood that the Golden Company is paying back to Aegon, and the Golden Company was, of course, founded in the name of the Blackfyres to put them on the Iron Throne. And additionally, we very specifically hear that House Blackfyre is extinct through the female line. Or sorry, through the male line, but the female line is still alive. Whoops. This theory then brings in the idea that, oh, Varys could have had a sister who was married to Illyrio Mopatis. Illyrio has a dead wife named Sarah, which is itself a very Targaryen name, and the thought is that could be what binds these two together and causes them to work together for Aegon's advancement going forward. With that said, beyond Illyrio's affection for Aegon and Sarah having a fairly Valyrian name and being described with semi-Valyrian features, there really isn't evidence to connect her with Varys. Varys shaving his head could be to hide Valyrian features, but with that said, there are just generally a lot of people with Valyrian features in Lys, and beyond that, that doesn't necessarily mean that he would be the sibling to this individual who would be a Blackfyre. Rather, I think there's another character who could be our point of descent for Varys, which kind of falls into line with him wanting to eat away at the Targaryen dynasty while not necessarily being a Blackfyre. I think that Varys is a bright flame. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, and while you're down there, let me know what your opinion is. Do you think Varys is the secret member of a noble house? Is he no one? What are his true motivations? Is he a mermaid? What other secrets is he hiding? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments, because they're always fun to read, and yeah, I look forward to reading them. The Bright Flames are another cadet branch of House Targaryen, and they actually have their origins further back in the meta series history than House Blackfyre. The Blackfyres don't appear until A Storm of Swords and some of the later Dunk and Egg stories, but the Bright Flames are seeded as early as The Hedge Knight, which came out in the year following the first book's release, that being, I think, 1997, so a long, long time ago. In that book, we see an individual by the name of Aegon Brightflame, this very evil, very mad, or bordering on mad Targaryen, who ends up being exiled to Lys later in life. He's known as Aegon Brightflame, and he is fairly distinct in the historical record, and it seems as though Martin has always had the idea in his head for this cadet Targaryen branch to be a rival to Daenerys Targaryen. That rival might have once been a Brightflame, before later being transitioned into a Blackfyre, as if we look at the series as a whole, mentions of Bright Flames and Aegon and his son end up being much more prominent in the early novels, whereas in the more recent ones, the Blackfyres have come up quite a bit more, including the Golden Company. So I think that it does show that Martin's focus has shifted over the years. And I have a video on that subject in the past, talking about the ways this story kind of alters itself as it goes on. Aegon being exiled to Lys is quite notable, as Lys is very associated with Varys, as it is his city of origin, and Martin specifically addresses the possibility that Aegon could have left a few bastards behind in the city. Varys also is around the right age. Many people don't think about this, but Varys has to be kind of older in terms of how old he might be, specifically given the fact that he was an adult and able to work in the court of Aerys II Targaryen before Robert's Rebellion, which was 20 years before the main series, which is back when all of our main characters were pretty much teenagers, like Ned and Robert and Kat and that sort of thing. So I'd say Varys is probably in his 50s or 60s at this point, which would make him roughly in line with around the right time for the Bright Flames to be having kids. And I almost just accidentally said who I think his father might be, and that is Maegor Brightflame, the only trueborn child of Prince Aegon Targaryen, who ends up being snubbed from the throne because he's a baby when the king passes and a council just passes over him. Maegor Brightflame was ignored by the council because A, they really didn't want a long regency, they wanted stability and a realm that would be ruled by a concrete ruler, and additionally there were worries that Aegon's madness, including his death by drinking wildfire, could have in some way been passed down to his son, so nobody wanted to bet the realm on this one potentially insane toddler. So at that point we see Maegor Brightflame drop out of the story entirely, but it's interesting because we see mentions of him in the main series. That's pretty notable to me. I put a pretty high weight on things actually being in the text of the main series as a sign of importance for the trajectory of the narrative to come, and it is interesting what Martin places emphasis on. For example, Daemon Targaryen, the rogue prince guitar riff that I'll forget to edit in, is not mentioned in the main series whatsoever, but Maegor Brightflame is, which is quite interesting to me. He would be an ideal candidate for being Varys' father, as while there is a possibility that he could be much, much older and being the son of Aegon Targaryen, this baby Brightflame could be a lot more reasonable in terms of the age range necessary for Varys to be his kid. I also like the idea of Varys being the son of a Maegor. We see him as the master of the Red Keep in the series. No one else knows this castle like he does, and he is able to use that fact to his advantage so consistently. He can sneak in and talk to Ned Stark. He can sneak Tyrion out and allow him to free himself. He can sneak in and kill Kevin. And who is the person who built the Red Keep? King Maegor. I think it's a fun little nod that Martin might have included in having this kind of son of a different Maegor being the main kind of character who is using the Red Keep to its fullest potential in the main series itself, as kind of an echo of Maegor building it. The main thing that sells me on Varys Brightflame is his motivation. Varys' father should have been king. It was robbed from him, his birthright, by this council led by Bloodraven and putting someone else over him when he was clearly the successor to the throne. Varys himself lost the ability to produce an heir at a very early age. Despite him having a mind for politics and potentially being a good, if shrewd, king, he himself had no line to continue, and the Blackfyres would undoubtedly end with him. But at some point, he finds another way. He finds another candidate, another branch of House Targaryen that has been wronged in similar ways to the Bright Flames. In fact, they had a candidate killed at that same council. Through that bond of hate, Varys could want to elevate Aegon Targaryen, bring the Blackfyres into power where the Bright Flames could not be, and through this, bring low that dynasty which took from him his birthright. I should also note, there's at least one prophetic reference to the Bright Flames in a very recent book in the series, or as recent as a book in this series can get at this moment. Specifically, in Tyrion's story in A Dance with Dragons, he encounters this Red Priest, Maegor, who has a number of accurate visions in the flames that seem to actively predict the future. And specifically, in Tyrion's 8th chapter, Maegor makes reference of dragons old and young, true and false, bright and dark. These seem to directly correspond with characters in the story itself. Old Dragon is probably Maester Aemon, though Maester Aemon might be around dying at this point in the story. A young dragon could be any of Jon Snow or Daenerys or even Aegon. False Dragon is almost certainly Aegon. Dark Dragon, also probably Aegon. True Dragon, probably Daenerys. But Bright Dragon is quite interesting. The only bright dragons we know of in the main series would be the Bright Flames, and this seems to indicate that they have some presence that we don't yet know about. I also tend to think that two secret Blackfyres specifically might be a little much and might be a little repetitive. Rather, I think Martin might want to honor that other older part of the series, bringing back the descendant of this villain from his first short story in this world could be very fun and very rewarded. I'm very excited to see Aerion on screen in January with the Hedge Knight in this adaptation. I'm sure the actor is going to kill it. He seems great, and I imagine he can channel Viserys quite well. Viserys the Third, and not Viserys the First, in terms of our on-screen people. But yeah, I overall think that it's stronger for the story as a whole for Varys to be a bright flame. All that being said, bald head, uncanny features. I don't know, Tone. Could be a swisher. Who knows? That could be a very likely possibility as well. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I really appreciate it, and it really helps grow the channel. I have many more videos for you on A Song of Ice and Fire, House of the Dragon, Dunk and Egg, Game of Thrones in the very near future, and I hope you will join me for all of those. They will all be very fun. I'm working on a Daenerys deep dive right now, which I'm very excited about, but I do think it'll be another couple weeks until that is ready, as I am doing a reread of Daenerys' A Dance with Dragons arc for that video. So I am on Daenerys 6 right now. I am in the trenches. I will see you all soon. Goodbye.